Hello everyone, today is the 27th video of my web development practical video series. Today I'm going to discuss the question 27 of the question list, and let's go to our web development question list page. And here under day 6 we discuss the question 26, and here's the question 27. Before starting the video, I have to remind you, I told you this in my previous videos. We are continuing a question we started from question 24. So if you didn't watch those previous videos, it's better you watch them first before this one, because I'm not going to repeat all the processes I done in those videos. And let's go back to our question. Here is the question. The task of looking at product information needs to be further simplified. There are several steps you can take to begin the process. As a first step, we need to create a web page that shows information about the relevant product by clicking on the image of the product in our current web page. Okay, that's the part we have to complete in this question, but there are some other requirements together. You can see in this case there should be update details button and back button. Every input field should be disabled. Ignore back button. Create a function to call browser's back button for web page back button. Create a function to call the back button of the browser from the back button of the web page. Okay. Here you can see when we are creating this page, here is the page we created in previous video, but in that video this function is not included. When someone click on a product image, he should be transferred or redirected to a separate table, and he can this is the design we have to show to that user. Here you can see this is a similar image to the registration page we created in previous video, but in this case it shows the image of the product. You can see we isolate the product and the product name, category, brand, model, like those details are showing in the input fields, but we have to create those input fields disabled. So we can't change, the user can't change those details, but he can view them in the input fields. And there are two buttons, update details and back button. And when we are creating the back button, we have to simulate, or we have to mimic the same function which will execute when someone click on the back button. This button, you can see in the browser there's a button called back, and it will access the history of the user who use the web pages, and he will redirect it back to the previous web page or previous state he was in the browser. Now in this back button we can't add a link to redirect the user to a page or to a specific page. We have to mimic the function of the back button in the browser in this design too. Okay, that's the purpose of this, that's the requirements we have to cover in this question. And let's go to our answer. Here you can see this is the registration page. We created this page earlier. I'm not going to go through all the details. And in the previous video, the previous video before this one, I showed you the product view page, and I also enter this new product and show you how that how this page shows that image. Now when someone click on the if someone click on these images, let's see, let's think I want to show this image, so the details of this product. I'm going to click on this image. You can see I was redirected to a separate page, and this is the product view and update page they want us to create, and this is the image of the product. And also there are input fields, and these input fields are disabled. You can see I can't access these input fields, and the data related to these fields are showing here. Now here are register and go back button. I'm going to click on the back button. You can see I redirected back to the previous page. I will show you how I done that part, and let's select another product like this one. Here you can see the details of that relevant product is showing in the input fields. Okay, and this is the design, and let's go to our code. Okay, in the question 3, and this is the answer, and this is the index page. I'm not going to go through that detail. When someone click on the go to product button, he will redirected to the product view page, because it will trigger when someone click on that button. It will trigger, let me show you that button. When someone click on, sorry, let's go back again. When someone click on the product view button in the register product view, he will redirected to the product view page, which is this page. And you can see this is the page I created for that one, and this is the table which will show all the details and also the images of the product. And you can see there's a new part I added to this specific cell. You can see this is the image cell, image part. You can see this is the image part, and I use a image tag or image element, HTML image element, to show that image using the path we stored in our database. This is the database we created to show our details, and you can see we use this image path to show these details, to show the image. And in this one again I created a on-click attribute, and in that on-click attribute it will trigger a function, this function GPW, when someone click on that image. But you can see in the parameters area, this is the default method of a function. You can let me show you. Here we are in the index page, and you can see this is the default method, or this is the standard method writing a function, the function name and two brackets. And in these brackets we are if there are parameters, we can set those in within these two brackets. And in the product view you can see I used that parameters and set the ID of the brand as the parameter. So when this function triggered, let's go to the JavaScript file and find that function. You can see this is the function, and here GPW and X, you can see I catch that ID. I get that ID using this variable I created in this function. So when someone click on this product, when this record created, the ID will store in that function, and I click on that function, it will store the ID of the product in this function, this variable called X. And when someone click on this image, you can see the ID is number. Let's go to the database. Here ID is number 5, so number 5 will store in this function, and when that function triggered, that ID can access using this variable. So this is a dynamic value, and here window.location equal product details.php. If you watch my previous videos, you know how this window.location works. You can see in the go to product view function, there's a similar function, and when this function execute, it will redirect the user to product view.php file. But in our function, we are talking now GPW. When it's execute, it will also change the users. It will also redirect the user to product details.php, and also when that request made, it will transfer the value recorded in the X variable, which is the ID of the product, combined to the URL, and you can see that value is again assigned to a new name called ID, and these details, the ID will transfer to that page too. So let's go to that product detail page. You can see this is the product details page, and let's see what I done there. In the top of this file, I again created the database connection, and after that here's a select query to the product table, and select asterisk means I requested all the details related. Here you can see I use the where clause, and when we use where clause when we filter the data using a condition. But so in this case, the ID, when the data is selecting, the ID should equal to the ID which will come from the get method, come to this file in get method. So you know, we transfer the product ID in get method. So when we come to this, or when we redirect the user to this file, when we transferring data, there are two methods called post and get. If you combine the details you want to transfer to the URL, that means you are using the get method. So that means I use the get method, so that's why I wrote this one $_get ID. So the value of this name ID, which will come in get method, will search in our database. You can see if the ID number 5 come to this file, it will search the record and get the details related to the record which have the ID number 5. And after I execute, you can see in the next line, I executed this query using the database connection we used, and after that select query execute, the outputted value will be stored in this variable in table format. Okay, in the next line, I used the numRows function to check that outputted value or the outputted table, whether there's a record in that result set or not. So if the ID is a valid one, there will be a record. So the number of rows in that result set should be number 1. But if there's an error or the ID is missing or deleted or something like that, if he couldn't find a suitable ID and record in the database, there will be no record, so the number of rows will be 0. So in the next line, I checked using a if condition whether this number of rows is equal to 1. That means I checked whether there's a record or not. If there's no record, that means it's not equal to number 1. It will only execute these lines and skip these lines behind. Okay, when there's no record, that means there's an error. So I started a JavaScript element, and in that element, when this element execute, here alert no product found, so it will show a error message called no product found, and after that window.location equal product view.php. You can see it will change. You know what this function do? It will change or redirect the user to the product view, which is this page. So if there's a problem, he will redirect it back to this product view page. And if there's a value or if there's a record corresponds with that ID, which will come in get method, it will show this design. This is the design of this page. You can see this is the design of this page, the product view and update page. And in that update page, you can see there are IDs, and the important part is when I am creating these inputs, you can see I assign a default value, and this default value, I stored the default value by accessing the result set. Here you can see in on the top of this set of HTML elements, when this if condition met the requirements, so that means there's a record, so there will be details in that table. So I use the fetch assoc function. I explained this fetch assoc function even in my previous video. Let me show you the database. You can see this data is in a table format, and if this is the record which is stored in this variable gdrs, it will rip out this record and disassemble the element attributes and store the values in these attributes under a set of variables related to the attribute name. You can see there will be a variable called p name, and its value will be cream cracker. Like that, all the values will be stored in different variables, and we call that an associative array. So that array will be stored in this variable. There's a new variable called gddata, and I access that gddata by calling that variable name, and in that associative array I access the value of the image path variable. You can see that image path variable is storing this image path. If this is the record, this is the image path which will store as the value of the image path variable. So I put that in a image HTML element to show that image in this design, and the input fields are same. The values will be showed values will be showed by default in these input fields. But there's another new part I added. You can see I again added an attribute called disabled. When someone added this attribute to a element, usually an input field, that input field will be disabled, so it can't that values can't change in these input fields. Okay, I think that's it for these parts of the design. Now let's go to the go to back button. Here you can see there's a button called register, and in the next line here's another button called go to back. And in this go to back button, you can see I assign on click attribute, and if you watch the previous videos, you know what this on click attribute do. It will redirect the user, it will trigger this JavaScript function go h back. That means go to history back when someone click on this button. Okay, let's go to the JavaScript file. and find that function here. You can see this is the function, and in this go to back function, when that function execute, you can see it's not going to execute window.location and some file. It's not going to request some file. You can see window.history.back. It's going to access the browser's history, and it will going to redirect the user to the last page he watched before this one. And it's not like requesting a default page, or like this product view.php page. If he come from another website, he will be redirected back to that website. So this will depend on the user. This will depend on the previous page which user watched. Okay, that's the whole process of this product view and update page. And I think I covered all the details. I showed you how that back button works and access and work as the back button in the browser. And also I showed you how this product view design works. I think that's it for this video. Let's see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching.